It's late. The house is finally quiet, and there you are, lying in the dark, exhausted down to your bones, and somehow wide awake. Your chest is tight, your heart is racing, and your mind is all over the place. You recently started taking magnesium because you heard it helps with anxiety and sleep. You think you bought the right type and have been taking the correct dose. So you've been waiting for the magnesium magic, but nothing. You still can't sleep and your anxiety is through the roof. So let's talk about why your magnesium has not been working and what needs to change first. I'm Dr. Air, quadruple board certified psychiatrist, and I've sat with thousands of people who feel exactly the way you feel right now. First, you really need to understand this. You're not broken, you're not weak. Let me tell you about someone. I'll call her Diane. She's 49. She recently experienced an intense bout of anxiety, which started suddenly when she was sitting in the school pickup line waiting for her kids. She talked about how her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. She gripped the steering wheel and waited for it to pass. She thought this was a one-off, but it went on for months. She also began to struggle with insomnia, so she started on magnesium glycinate. Her sleep got a little better, but the anxiety persisted. And gradually, she had started to believe something was very wrong with her. But here's the thing. Diane was pouring water into a bucket with a hole in the bottom. Here's the first piece, and it surprises almost everyone. When you're under stress, your body does not hold on to magnesium, it dumps it. There is a 2020 review in the journal Nuances with a name for this, the magnesium and stress vicious cycle. When you're stressed, you lose magnesium in your urine. So the more pressure you carry, the faster you lose it. Sit with that for a second. The people who need magnesium the most are the ones losing it the fastest. So Diane was not taking too little. She was refilling a bucket that was leaking the whole time. Now you have probably heard someone online say the real problem is the type you bought. That cheap magnesium oxide barely absorbs, and you only absorb about 4% of it. They're half right. That 4% comes from one small study, and it is overblown. But the cheap stuff does absorb poorly, and forms like glycinate are better absorbed. So get a good form. But if that were the answer, Diane would have been fine. She used the good form. So the form was never the real story. And here's where it gets worse. That leak runs both ways. Being low on magnesium makes your stress system jumpier, quicker to fire. So low magnesium cranks up your stress, and cranked up stress drains more magnesium, which cranks up your stress even more. It's a vicious cycle. In a 2012 study in the journal Neuropharmacology, researchers reduced magnesium levels in animals and observed the anxiety increase. They saw that the deficiency had revved up the HPA axis. That is your body's main stress pathway, the one that triggers cortisol release, the stress hormone. So the bucket does not just leak. The stress keeps widening the hole. Now, this next part is the one most people get wrong, and it is the part that finally made sense to Diane. To understand it, you need to know what magnesium does in your brain. Picture your nervous system like a car. The gas pedal is a chemical called glutamate. It speeds up your brain. The brake is a chemical called GABA. It slows you down. And magnesium works in both. It eases off the gas and it helps the brake do its job. That is the real reason it can feel calming. But here's the problem. Magnesium is the brake fluid. It is not the brake. If your nervous system has been stuck on high alert for months or years, your brake is not low on fluid. It is jammed. There's a name for that stuck state. Autonomic dysregulation. And you cannot pour your way out of a jammed brake. You can take all the magnesium in the world. If your system is locked in fight or flight, that fluid has nowhere to go. And this was the issue with Diane. It was not necessarily the magnesium failing her. Her nervous system was dysregulated. Magnesium just could not release the brake that her whole body was holding down. And that right there is the real work. Not chasing a better bottle, unsticking the brake. That is exactly what I help people do with something I call the nervous system reset. It takes the load off your stress system. Magnesium is one small input. The reset is what lets that input work. The link is in the description below. A doctor named Mildred Selig published on magnesium from at least the 1960s through the early 2000s, with her work appearing in journals such as the Journal of the American College of Nutrition and Clinical Nephrology. Her publications covered an extraordinary range of magnesium-related topics. She issued a warning that we were quietly starving ourselves of magnesium and that it was hurting our minds and bodies. She tied it to anxiety in a paper in 1975, but she was largely ignored until decades later. And here's something else that is not your fault. The food we eat has changed. There is an analysis from 2004 comparing our food now to the food we had in 1950. Some minerals had dropped by close to 40% due to how we farm and process food. So you can eat healthy but still run low on some micronutrients. Some studies show that over half the adult population does not get enough nutrients from their food. And the surprising part, a normal blood test usually misses it because almost none of your magnesium stays in your blood. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. The research on magnesium for anxiety is promising, but it is mostly suggestive. For some of you, it will help a great deal. For others, it is one quiet piece of a much bigger picture. And some of you are still going to need medications. That is not a failure. Medications are tools and can be game changers for many people. I'm not anti-medication. I prescribe it every week. But I also believe in root cause treatment, finding out what is actually happening inside you, and using traditional psychiatry, integrative medicine, and lifestyle medicine without over-medication. So here's something I want you to take from this. You cannot out-supplement a nervous system that is stuck. The magnesium was never going to be enough on its own because the magnesium was never the problem. So it's not necessarily a failure of magnesium. You're likely someone whose nervous system has been overloaded with years of stress, career pressures, aging parents, teenage kids, relationship issues. On the outside, you seem like things are fine, but you know you're struggling inside. That is not a character flaw. That's a setting, and settings can be changed. The magnesium was never the problem, but it was likely the first clue that something deeper was going on, meaning you needed to reset your nervous system. And that's exactly what this next video talks about.